Omerzu. I'm film director and scriptwriter as well. Ungrateful Beings tells the story about a recently divorced father who takes his two teenage children to seaside. He's trying to hold family together. His teenage daughter Klára falls for a first time in love, but when this fragile love collapses, she ends in the hospital. For me, the main question of the film is actually how far are parents willing to go to save their daughter's life, even if they are crossing moral boundaries, lying and manipulating. But Ungrateful Beings has a different title in French. You should tell it because I'm afraid how to pronounce pour Klára. It's complicated for me.
Everything will be fine.
Donc vous nous présentez une famille où le mensonge est essentiel pour rester unis. D'où vous vient cette vision de la famille?
I had different ideas from the beginning. For me, it was very fascinated to think about the fact that children and parents are not able to completely know each other. It's kind of based upon power dynamic in the family relationships and also age gap and also kind of authority that parents are bringing. So one thing that for me was interesting was how to find a way that parents would know their daughter in a sense how she really is. So that was actually the starting point for idea of a messages. And for me it was interesting idea that honesty in this film, it's kind of a paradox. They can know each other, but at the same time only through the manipulation and lies. You know, the whole dramaturgy of the film, it's based on how small, white, innocent lies are slowly developing in something more dangerous. Like we have from lie that it's kind of developing to manipulation, which I think is very problematic for the film. So yeah, I was thinking about that kind of ideas a lot.
We're going home? Where's all our stuff?
You are always probably a murderer.
A boy? You let your daughter run around with someone you don't know at all.
Nee, mam laat.
Alors le film explore justement les limites de l'intimité familiale, notamment entre les parents et les enfants, ce qui donne des séquences assez grinçantes par moments. Comment vous avez travaillé narrativement cette progression du malaise tout au long du récit?
We had the long rehearsals. I'm always rewriting the screenplay upon the improvisations at the acting rehearsals. And for me it was very important to define how far it's too far to go with that. Because I know that there is a certain moment, if you go too far, then the viewer will lose the character. I have, for example, certain empathy to our characters. I know why they are doing that. I know that it's awkward situation and I don't agree with that, how they are solving problems, but I totally understand their despair. I know from where it's coming from. And if you go too far in the direction of awkwardness, then I think that you lost the viewer in a sense of a connection with the characters. So I was really, really sensitive about defining that when it's too far, how far we should go. But for me, it's very interesting, you know, to balance that act. It's really a lot about balancing the whole act of the characters. One thing that is also important is how I approach the actors at the time. Because when we were rehearsing, we all know that probably the scene has a comical potential as well. I forbid that awareness to the actors. I told them, you should play the scene like in a psychological way. Don't think about the absurd that it's kind of a core of a situation. Don't think about that. Play it just as it is. Don't have an awareness of being funny in the situation. Because otherwise we are losing the authenticity of the scene.
Ok. Alors pourquoi avez-vous choisi l'anorexie et le rapport au corps, à la nourriture, comme vecteur de cette intrigue?
I have a very close friends that had eating disorder in the similar age as Klára. For me, it's kind of very symptomatic. Eating disorder is very symptomatic for nowadays society as well, where we have a strong pressure from the society about how young people should behave, how they should look. There is a big pressure. For Klára, there are several different moments in her life where she lost the fair background, like everything gets destroyed for her in a sense. Everything gets a bit broken. And for me, this dysphoria and eating disorder was interesting also because Klára is trying to get a control upon her own life, upon her own body. And that kind of felt right to have it in the story.
À la fin, du coup, vous nous laissez en tension avec une séquence qui révèle un petit peu toute l'hypocrisie de la famille. Pourquoi avoir fait ce choix de ne pas faire éclater la vérité?
While we were writing the screenplay, for me what was really interesting was how lie in our film actually solve all the problems. Not just one, but it solves in so many levels. And the fact if parents wouldn't totally ignore the youngest son, Theo, actually they would kind of progress to the certain happiness that they invent, even if this happiness is totally built upon lies. So for me, it's actually very important, the gesture of a younger Theo who called the police and who kind of destroyed that fake happiness that is there. It's also something that I identified with. It's a bit like also my statement that comes from that gesture into the film. So for example, I don't see that film in that it has an open ending, even if some people are thinking about it in that way. Because the full stop in that film comes with the giant gesture for Theo, I can't imagine what comes after for him, if you become kind of a traitor in a family from a perspective of someone else, even if it's not like that. But on the other hand, for me it was always interesting. I don't know what will happen when the film ends. I know several possibilities what can happen, and all are interesting. But I don't know in which direction I would go if, for example, I should shoot another 15 minutes of a film.
La photographie du film est vraiment magnifique, que ce soit la composition, la lumière, le cadre. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous parler de votre collaboration avec Christophe Melka, le chef opérateur, et quels ont été vos choix esthétiques pour le film?
We had many challenges in this film that were connected with tonal shifts, I would say, because the film is playing with, it's like a psychological drama that has an element of a comedy, and there is on a merging of the story, there is a thriller, and it's important to all these things kind of balanced in a coherent film. So we were a lot of talking about formal decisions that we'll be using through the whole film, because in the middle of the film we are abandoning the beautiful exteriors of sunny Croatia, and we are moving to the interiors of hospital and apartments. And there was always like a bit dangerous that we are entering a totally different film with a totally different atmosphere. And we were trying to find ideas that kind of mirrors in the first part and the second part as well.
Okay, and j'aimerais bien revenir sur... vous avez parlé de rupture de ton, et justement, c'est vrai qu'on rigole, on est ému, puis on est gêné, mal à l'aise. Comment vous avez travaillé ces ruptures justement dans le scénario et puis dans la mise en scène?
For me, it's not a mixing of a genres. I always see the reality in that way, that it has got like all these different elements. And I thought that the most interesting thing is how to do it as natural as possible. But on the other hand, I like very much working with the atmosphere. it's very much present in all my films. So we were discussing with Monica Omerzu, she did the score for the film. We were discussing how the music should work in the film. If it should be in a contradiction with what's going on, it should be like a counterpoint that goes more to the thriller direction, or if it should be more emotional because it's like Klára's music. And then we found also that there are several possibilities how to work with music, that we can have like themes that are coming from Klára and are supporting this kind of romantic idea of a first love. And then we could have also the music that is underlining the disturbance in the film. But it's, on the other hand, it's a lot of about editing as well, and balancing the movie in the editing room. In my approach to life or characters, it's always about looking these kind of contradictions. I don't like characters that are just good or bad. When the characters have this kind of like ambivalence, then I'm much more interested about them. Like I can much easily empathize with them, even if they are doing things that I totally don't agree. But in that moment, they kind of attracts me. I start thinking about them. They're mistress for me. Also, one other thing which was interesting was that for me always was like, oh, I'm doing film about lies and manipulation, and it's something that it irritates me so much, because it's like in the last 3 years, it's everywhere around us. I mean, you know, watching news on mobile, watching Instagram. And then I said, okay, let's do the film that is just about the family, and let's talk about the same topics as how lies is becoming more and more dangerous, and it goes to the manipulation. But when we were rehearsing, I actually realized that my characters are so human when they are lying. You know what I mean? That I thought that my first reaction will be that I'll be angry when I'm watching them, how they are solving the situation, but there is something very human about that. If someone is lying, I don't know how to say, but I was kind of surprised when we were doing that.
And, did you have some references during your creative processes? Some films that you think about that inspired you?
We didn't have like concrete film in mind when we were doing that. We watched several different scenes. For example, how someone is shooting scenes, swimming in the seaside. You know, it's more like technical approaches, but we didn't have like a concrete film in our mind.
Enfin, dans le film, du coup, on est du point de vue de la mère, du père, de l'enfant, de la fille. Il y a vraiment beaucoup de personnages à qui on adopte le point de vue, et j'ai trouvé que c'était très bien réparti et que c'était très bien équilibré en termes de répartition de points de vue. Et comment, du coup, il a travaillé cet équilibre?
Yeah, it was probably the heaviest thing to do in the writing process, because it's always much easier if you decide to tell the story through one character's point of view. But which for me it was, let's say, more like father from the beginning, but on the other hand, it was very important to tell the Klára's love story in the first part. And to tell it like as intimate and emotional as possible. But I was a bit struggling while I was writing, because for me it wasn't right that we are not getting close to Klára. You know what I mean? Because always if you decide, okay, so I'm more, I have more perspective of father, this is my like point of view, then you're a bit losing what's going on in Klára's mind, actually, let's say. And with all this sensitive subject, with what is going on in her head, for me it was very important to find a way how to understand her. So in the second part of the film, when I got an idea that I could use messages to open to her, to get her closer, to understand what she's going on, for me that felt very, very right, and I was very satisfied with that, because that was probably the only way how to deal with all this ambivalent emotions that she's going through. And I felt even a bit like in a documentary way, because like the starting point of that idea with the messages was when my friend showed me her diaries from the time when she was 17 years old and she was dealing with eating disorder. And that became my inspiration for the messages as well. So I wanted to have that space in a film where we can understand Klára and get as closer as possible. In that way, I felt that I have enough material for all the characters. But yeah, it's not easy to balance that kind of screenplay. It's a lot of rewriting, a lot of putting the screenplay, don't read it for 1 month, read it again, write down all the structures. I also, in one moment, I think that I've wrote 2 or 3 outlines, where I had in one, I had just like father as a main character, in other one I had like Klára as a main character, and then I was just comparing what works and what doesn't work, and it was then much easier for me to balance the whole script.
Do you have any project in the future, or any film in preparation or writing?
Right now we are in a process of financing, so it's very early stage right now, and we are waiting for results of a film fund, so fingers crossed for my next project, please.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, and that's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for a nice interview.
Thank you.